Hello, my friends. Eric Feltus here, host of The Great Unbecoming. I'm so glad that you are listening if you are on the podcast or watching if you are on YouTube. I just took a nap. And so that's why I'm recording this intro now, because oftentimes my voice is a lot deeper after I sleep, and I just like the way I sound. That's why I started a podcast, just to hear me talk. Y'all, before we get into it, I have to tell you about this dream I had because it was awesome. I got a really good idea for a new game through this dream. So in this dream, I was hanging out with Neil Patrick Harris, as one does, and we were playing pickup line bingo. Okay, so in pickup line bingo, according to Neil Patrick Harris, according to my dream, what you do is you open any sort of dating app, Tinder, Hinge, what have you. You have a bingo sheet in front of you, obviously, right? And in the bingo sheet are different words, okay? Like cow or, I don't know, mortgage. I don't know. Those are the first two words that came to my head. Don't judge. And what you have to do is you go on a dating app and you have to use a pickup line with someone on the app, but you have to use that word in the pickup line, and you get to cross off the box on your bingo card if that person replies to your pickup line using the keyword. I mean, like, come on. I need to sleep more often, clearly. There's really no graceful way of transitioning from talking about pickup line bingo to stalkers. That's it. That's my transition. You're welcome. If you have not listened to last week's episode, y'all, pause. You have to go back, listen to part 1 of Danny Cord's start his story about his stalker. Y'all, it's mind-blowing. Stop this right now. Go back and listen to that first episode. Okay, great. Now that you've done that, before we get into it, I forgot I have another announcement, y'all. I have another announcement. The shame-free gay men's retreat, gay, bi, trans, queer, people who identify as male retreat, GBTQ men's retreat, is coming up. It's going to be at Camp Wrightwood in Wrightwood, California. Y'all, it's going to be amazing. There are 8 meals, 3-night stay, yoga, sound bath, a challenge course with a trust fall, campfires, a couple of presentations, one by yours truly, an ice bath, because we're going to get out of our comfort zones. And it's going to be September 21st to the 24th. The price is $5.99. That includes everything, $5.99, all meals, all a 3-night stay, all those workshops included. Now, if you've gone through my 10-week journey, the 10-week shame-free program, the price is only $349. And if you are currently in the leadership program, the price is only $199. I mean, I'm literally giving it away for free. Okay, I hate when people use the word literally when it's not literally. I'm figuratively giving it away for free. Practically, I think that's a word I can use, practically giving it away for free. Because it's not about making money, it's about building community. So I hope you can join us. If you want any information on that, email me, eric@lifecoachingbyfeltus.com. You can DM me the word retreat on Instagram, Eric Feltus. You do you, y'all. And I hope to see you there. Now, without further ado, y'all, this is part 2 of my interview with Danny Cords about him, his community, and his stalker. Enjoy.
At this time, though, the HRC flew out, people flew out. I'm in USA Today. This is, all these things coming out. We're having these conversations. And that pissed off my stalker. And that's where shit gets really real. So that day, it's nuts. I'm teaching change management. I love change management. I love it. I love org psychology, of course. It's my jam. I just love, I love helping, to quote Adam Grant, make work not suck, but also improve people's lives in the workplace, which improves their lives out of the workplace. I love to actually do human-centered approach to the work through psychology. So I'm teaching my class. I leave, I go to the Capitol, I go to the signing of the bill, I do a couple of interviews, and I come back and I finish my class. That's pretty badass, y'all. And by the way, I didn't tell anyone at work. They found out when they saw me on the news that night.
Wow.
I did this at my lunch break, which is pretty badass. I wish I could have celebrated it more at the time, but I was going through trauma. And it was traumatic for me. Somebody once in a comment, I know you shouldn't read the comments, said that I bandied the word trauma. And I received that feedback and I disagree. This was so traumatic. It was so traumatic. I can't explain more than that.
Well, and I, first of all, you know me, I always read the comments, let's be honest. I love pushing back on comments, Danny. But what I'll say, and I'll never pretend to know what it feels like, and hopefully knock on wood, I never have to know what it feels like to have a stalker. But the thought of having to look over your shoulder 24/7 for years, it's almost like death by 1,000 cuts. You have to be exhausted at this point.
Yeah, remember the blanket analogy. Death by 1,000 cuts, same thing. So that day of conversion therapy passing, finishing the class, doing these media interviews, and then I drive 2 hours up to Seattle to go work in the scholarship program because we're getting ready to welcome in a new incoming cohort of scholars. I love this organization. On the way up, I start getting pings about being stalked and all of these things. So I show up just a mess. And thank God for this community, because there are some people, and I get it. I was a cyclone of everything, anxiety, of drama, and all of these things. And it wasn't all my choosing. I was reacting to my environment a lot. And so I come in hot to this place, and I'm basically in tears. They didn't ask. I've dropped these emotion bombs, which is not really kind to do to people. You should ask for permission and consent to drop emotion bombs, to share your story. But to Louise, the CEO and president at the time, at a mark, I just say, this is everything that's going on in my life. And in true community fashion, and true GSBA fashion, they give me a hug, which is exactly what I needed then, and brought me over to the catering table and got me dinner and sat me down and were with me. And I'm just like, upstanders. There's bystanders in the story and there's upstanders. And these were upstanders. It was just so needed. I have a night, it's a reprieve. It was great. I start heading home and I'm texting this boy I'm dating, not seriously, but dating, named Brian. And I start getting these ready to die texts directly to my phone from another auto dialer. And it's signed with a B. So this person knows I'm not home. They know I'm driving. They made that clear in the text. These are repeated texts. And it's like, ready to die. I'm waiting in your closet. This is, I need to give a warning. This is graphic. If you don't like this, skip ahead 3 minutes. Are you ready to die? I'm waiting in your closet. I can't wait to rip your intestines out. Can't wait to see how much you bleed. Faggot, it's time to die. Signed with a B. I was just talking to somebody named Brian. This is somebody who has access to what's going on in my phone. I'm freaked out. I don't know what to do. I'm driving back to the sticks. I moved out of the city, which means it's just dark. There's no one there. I live in this house by myself, terrified. I don't know if this is true or not. So I call my friends, and one of them is connected to a public defender, and I get in touch with her. Thank God. And she said, go drive to the police station, call 911, tell them you're coming. They're probably not, the doors are probably locked. This is like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm driving back a 2-hour commute, right? So there were one without traffic, but still, it's a long commute. And make sure you get a police report is what the advice of this public defender said. So I called 911, and the operator didn't know what to do with my call. She didn't understand. So I kind of go into solve mode. I'm saying, hey, listen, I'm getting these death threats. Somebody says they're in my house. They're going to kill me. I need someone to meet me at the police station in Tumwater. I'm going to be there in Tumwater. Meet me in Tumwater. And this person's like, okay, whatever, and just kind of disconnects the call. No big deal. I get to the police station in Tumwater and there's nobody there. I go up to the door. It's locked. I don't want to be outside of my car because it was made clear that this person knew I was traveling, and they, with the V signed, probably knew what I was saying and what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had cloned my phone. And there was other behavior as well that would suggest that maybe they did this. By the way, here's the other piece of this for all the tech gurus out there that are poking holes in all the security. Here's why and how a way that they got access, which is really unfortunate. But my ex-husband, for whatever ungodly reason, kept a lot of my things, which included some of my devices, which gave access to my Apple IDs.
Mm.
Right. Which we later found out with the help of the DOJ. All of these things, right? So it was just really tough. There's so much to the story that I'm just leaving out, but it's hard to keep succinct. So I get to the police station, nobody. So I call 911 again. I say where I'm at. I say I need an officer. They send out an officer. He comes probably 45 minutes to an hour in. I have my binder of evidence with me. I have the text messages saying he's going to rip out my intestines. And that officer, and I tell this story all the damn time, and I don't think people understand how painful this was. But he relates this story to a time that his buddy signed him up for a senior citizen homes mailer list. He said, your friends are probably just fucking with you. It's probably just your ex. And listen, people want to find a reason for this all the time. I'm going to use what I use in my consulting. Right, wrong, or indifferent, this is the data point. So not looking at where we were, but where do we go from here? Because this is the reality of today. This is the data point. I am ready to rip out your intestines. I'm waiting in your closet, and the cop says it's not a big deal. I beg him to take a police report, and he doesn't. I have dozens of pages of evidence with screenshots and the text messages on my phone with an explicit threat to my safety in my home. It doesn't even take a police report. It sends me on my way. So I go home in Tumwater alone in the dark. I call a friend to make sure that I'm not walking into my house in case I get murdered, because I don't know. And I checked the closets, and I'm fine. And I went to bed. And the next day I went to work. And I continued. And I was resilient for that time. I call a friend who's a detective with the Seattle Police Department. I tell him what's happening. And he says he's going to take a report. I haven't seen it. That's just it. I call a lawyer. I hired Carrie Goldberg. She's out of New York City. I highly recommend C.A. Goldberg as a law firm if you're dealing with anything from revenge porn to stalking. And I called my attorney through her office, who was advising me at the time. By the way, let me just say, I invested about $75K into this case.
Wow.
And in restitution, I'm getting about 20 grand back, which I didn't expect any of the money back. But I just want to say I could have sued in civil court. I didn't. I chose not to. I was ready to move on. I just used my divorce settlement to fund the stalker. So in a way, whatever. But the court, just in terms of tangible legal fees, granted me $20,000. So y'all, if you don't have privilege, good luck getting justice, which is not what I want to see in this world. It is not okay. You shouldn't have to have access to wealth to protect yourself from death threats and to keep you safe. Off the soapbox. I call the C.A. Goldberg office, contacts the DOJ, says, will you take this case? They say no. And The statistic from 2018, according to CNET, with one of the articles I did, was 16,900 cases were reported in the year that I reported mine. 16 cases were resourced ultimately, and eventually mine did get resourced, and I was one of those 16. Out of 16,900 cases, 16 were resourced. And my attorneys with the DOJ were the same people that were resourced to everything in cybercrime, including kiddie porn, right? Child pornography, which is really unfortunate. I feel so guilty taking up space, and yet there's so many people not getting justice. One of my detectives was in Mar-a-Lago for a big chunk of this case, ironically, doing an investigation. Like, I mean, amazing. These are the people. So anyways, I digress. Initially, the death threats, they reject the case. I go back to work. I'm practicing my resilience. I come home from work. I'm feeling shaken, but we're just trucking along. It's fine. Now, in my personal life, in addition to the GSB, I was volunteering for a summer camp with these kids, 4 to 14, that are infected or directly affected by HIV and AIDS. A lot of these kids are in the foster system. Love these campers, love this group. It's awesome. Joel, my stalker, hacked into an Associated Press reporter's, an actual Associated Press reporter's email account to send an email saying that I was being investigated and that they had evidence against me and interviews with parents that I had sexually abused the campers at camp. Hacked the camp, found names of people that I didn't even know about that were involved with the higher administration of the camp. I called up my buddy at camp who's on the board there and said, what is this? What's going on? He says, I don't know, but there are people listed in this that nobody knows about. They're like legacy members. They would only know if they're an insider. Something's going on, so we've got to figure this out. Now, I'm going to go on record here and say that if you are convicted, or somebody says that you have assaulted somebody sexually or otherwise, you step down from everything that you're doing with kids, and you be an ally to victims. So when I called the GSBA, because I was in interviewing scholars, I said, this happened. And they said, what do you think you should do? And I said, I think I should step down for this time. I'm stepping away from my community, which I think was exactly the intent of that email. Was to
isolate you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also steal my credibility. Remember the day before, I was doing all these interviews. I was on the news. Conversion therapy was banned. And the very next day, I'm getting sexual misconduct allegations with minors. So I stepped down. I have to tell my work because now I don't know how far this is going to go. And that was the other thing. I just noticed from day one to now, there was a steady path of escalation. And suddenly, especially as I'm finding success, it's just going crazy, the escalation. It always escalates. And at what point is this going to be my physical safety or the people I care about as well? So with that, we go back to the DOJ. And we say, hey, can you reconsider this? And that day they came back and said no. Sexual misconduct allegations, no. Okay. So now there's internal investigations happening with camp and all of these things. Here's the thing that's in my favor, which is really great. And the year that Joel made it seem like I was at camp, I wasn't even at camp. So thank God that the allegations that were lodged against me were from a year I wasn't even at camp. I wasn't even there. So thank God. So that helped. And but I mean that community, that camp community is still dead. I just can't bring myself to go back. They probably would have me back, but I'm so embarrassed, even though it's not my issue. Like this was my stalker, but I digress. Here's the thing. So I go back to work, living my life. Shit kind of quiets down a little bit. And one day I get this weird Facebook message from somebody from the Seattle Police Department saying, hey, I'm a detective. You're not in trouble, but I need to talk to you. And I'm thinking, this is my stalker. This has got to be my stalker because it was a burner account. It had like Bert from Mary Poppins, a blurry picture of Bert as the profile picture, no information. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to talk to you. I tell my lawyer says, just reach out. That number checks out. It's the SPD. So I call this detective. It is a detective. And she starts talking to me. She was amazing. I'm under investigation for stalking because someone else is being stalked and my number is being used to stalk. Interesting. So I say, okay, you know what? I have an attorney. We're going to send you all of my evidence because I can cross-reference some of this shit. My stalker, by the way, was using and hijacking other people's numbers to call me, including my ex-husband, including his boyfriend, including my friends around me, all sorts of things. So it wasn't surprising to me that he was using my numbers to stalk other people. Here's the dirt. Here's the juicy part. This is where it gets good. Break out your popcorn. This is the Lifetime movie. Joel was the head or second in command of IT for a major law firm in Seattle, and he was stalking their receptionist because she wouldn't fix the printer for him. What a douchebag. He stalked her to the point that the entire law firm had to hire an off-duty armed officer to protect people in the office because she was getting death threats. And she was getting things that said things like, you better not go to the bathroom. I can't wait to see how much you bleed. And saying things basically like she was being watched. Joel, the IT person at this law firm, was watching the receptionist and stalking her and using my number in the process. And then the law firm had to go out as far as to get panic buttons that people had to wear so that if a stalker showed up, they could hit them. Okay, you want to talk about trauma? You think cyber stalking is not a real crime? Because this major law firm invested, gosh, I think it was 14 grand to protect themselves. Because that's their restitution. You want to tell me that cyber crime is not a crime? So this is going on. The detective gets the evidence. We quickly figure it out. Now, this is one of the major law firms in Seattle. I have all sorts of opinions on this. I'm going to stick to the facts, which is my passive-aggressive Northwest way of saying it could have been handled a little bit better. And this is when the DOJ takes the case, not before. But when they find out that somebody on the inside, that the call's coming in from inside the house of this major law firm, maybe with a relationship with the DOJ, I don't know, that they say, we're going to take this case. So now you have two bodies resourced in the case. You have the SPD, who's been investigating this, and then you have the DOJ, the FBI. And so we're all going in. Oh, I completely left out collateral damage. My friends were also getting stalked. So my two besties, Amy and Lisa, were getting cyber stalked as well. They were getting hundreds, if not thousands, of things like my friend Amy was getting like the C word, things like that were sent out as well. Again, trying to isolate probably. Friends with me, you're going to get stalked, is what he was saying. So we all get pulled into the DOJ, and we are interviewed by the DOJ, and it was just nuts. So I come into this table in the federal courthouse, and I'm under investigation. They're asking me all sorts of cryptic questions and everything, and they have these binders. There's photos in them. They've been watching us for a while, and they've been tracking things. They have been doing an investigation. And we kind of go through all of these questions, and at the end, they want to say, okay, well, what do you have for us? And I bring out my timeline, and I hand over the evidence. Of course, they already had it. But we're talking, and I'm asking what's going to happen. And they said, well, we need to figure out who's doing it. And we can't just say it's coming from inside the house, which they more or less knew, but they didn't say explicitly. They were being very careful with their words, right? Very legal. What they said was, we're investigating everybody. It's not illegal to be an asshole. And we have to prove fingers on the keyboard, which means that if it's my computer and my computer sends out an email that is slander or whatever, you have to prove that I'm the one that's sending it and that it wasn't hijacked. And that's a big problem because that makes it really difficult. Because now when you subpoena people like Facebook, they may never get back to you, or they may get it wrapped up in red tape like my case and never return the subpoena in time for the case. I forget how long they have, but it was months. Google returned the subpoena pretty fast, because Joel was in all my stuff, right? So all of my social, I was basically, everything in my life that was private no more. It was all subpoenaed. It all went to the feds. And if these tech companies, and I work for a major tech company, and I always advocate for this too, and we do a good job where I work, and but not everyone does. Some people never came back with a subpoena, so you're kind of at the mercy of these tech giants, because when they're not regulated to do the right thing, they don't have to do the right thing. And if there's any risk to doing the right thing financially, then they're probably not going to do that risk, or they're going to drag their feet or get lost in meetings that should have been emails, right? We all know what it's like to get stuck in that corporate loop. So here we are going through this process, trying to get fingers on keyboards. They're watching this whole thing, and it's just this waiting game. I'm still getting stalked. I'm sending, every time it happens, I'm sending the DOJ, my attorney, examples. They were sick of me. They didn't want to hear from me anymore. It was becoming very apparent that the attorney at the DOJ, as nice as he was tired of hearing from me. And I don't blame him. He was working on 16 of the cases that were resourced out of the 16,000 he probably had to sift through. And here I am sending him the C word that I just got 1,000 times. This is probably low on the priority list, but it has been resourced for whatever reason, right? So we're here. We're moving on, we're waiting, and thank God one day Joel slips up and forgets to turn on his VPN as he sends me a threat. And they catch him red-handed. And within a day, this is so gorgeous. This next part, I love this part. This is the happy ending right here. I mean, he went to prison, that's ultimately the happy ending, but this is where, again, get out the popcorn, it's good. My ex-husband called me a liar. He told people I was a liar. He still tells people these are my imaginings. You know what? Google it, if you think it's my imaginings, because the evidence is out there, if not from me, from the DOJ. Okay? United States versus Kaczynski. Look it up. There's my receipts. But my ex-husband said to a friend, after all this happening, when my friend unfriended him on Facebook out in his own will, he said, you unfriended me either because we haven't talked a lot or you're believing Danny's imaginings. Talk about gaslighting, right? So I love what happened to him. All of this, he's saying, I'm not going to talk to you, yada, yada. The feds, the Secret Service, show up at his door at 7 a.m. with a smash and grab, which is where they bang on their door, they come in the house with a warrant, and at gunpoint brought them all out onto the yard and put them in the yard and questioned them and took every single electronic device in the house for investigation. I love that happened to my ex-husband.
It was your ex-husband's new boy, and Joel. So because you still didn't know of the three who it was.
I mean, we were starting to pick up on it. I still thought it was the new boy because he kind of started this. He was texting me directly.
Right.
It wasn't hidden.
Red herring.
Right, exactly. And I think that might be why the Fed said it's not illegal to be an asshole. To distinguish that this is not illegal, but these death threats and things are, right? So I don't know if that's true. That's just kind of what I'm walking away with. So, by the way, I know about this because we were serving on the same board at the time, and that board's computer, or the computer that my ex was using for that board for their finances, he was the treasurer, was taken by the feds. So he had to explain why all of our records were now with the FBI and this email. So it was forwarded to me. He left me out of that board communication. So somebody forwarded it to me and I read it and I just felt so good. It just, it's not my proudest moment, but I love it. It's so juicy. Because you know what? If you're so complicit not being an upstander and you're living with the enemy in one form or another, you deserve the raid.
Mm-hmm.
That's justice. So here we are going into it. There's a plea deal. Joel admits guilt on the spot. They say, okay. They walk away. They don't arrest him. And the reason why they don't arrest him is because they wanted to make sure they had every piece of evidence that could convict him. And if they arrest him, they would have that clock would start ticking before they had to seal things in. So I get this call from the DOJ saying, hey, watch your back. Joel knows that we know. And so he's out, and they were watching him, but not that close. Like, that's another thing with stalking. That happens a lot, right? Like, we know who your stalker is. Watch your back. They're not resourced to be his babysitter. So it's on me to watch my back, to call the police. We know how well that's been going for me. Some of the people, the survivors that are now part of my community that I've met are siblings of victims of stalking who have had their lives taken from them by their stalker. Just to put some heat here, some urgency. So eventually the plea deal comes up. We go to court. Joel accepts it. We go to sentencing, and Robert Lasnik was our judge. And I just love this. It was so validating. This moment, so many people were saying, just turn your phone off. It's an email. You're being too sensitive. It's not a big deal. People still say that. And he said in his sentencing, and he gave him a really good sentence for this crime of cyber stalking, a felony. He got 3 years in prison, a little over, and 3 years probation, which is great. Having to pay restitution, it does. And he ended, and he just said he knew that the media was there as well. He says, listen, it doesn't matter if it's a bomb threat, a gun to your head, a knife, or a computer. Crime is crime. You're going to do the time. And now when I go out and search for this case or just see what's up on the web, I love that I'm seeing this case cited in law schools, and I'm seeing it referenced in other cases. So it's starting to make the movement forward. Because if you think about it, right, like this is where we're at in the world. Crime is happening to all of us. I went to this digital seminar on resilience and recovery for when the cyber attack happens. Not how to prevent it, how to recover from it. That's the state of big tech, y'all. That's the state of big tech. We better update our laws and protections and start regulating so that we have protections as people who use these, who use single sign-ins from Facebook, Google, which no one should be doing, right? But we're so vulnerable to crime. We're so vulnerable to having our lives torn apart. We're so unprotected. It's just crazy to me. The law has far outpaced, technology has far outpaced the law. So anyways, and the other part I want to add in is just kind of I wrap up this story is, well, one, I survived this very difficult thing through community. Amy and Lisa, my ride or dies, right? The people that got stalked alongside with me, that went through this with me, that survived, amazing. The GSBA, who was so understanding and had my back. My employer at the time and my mentor, who said, I'm going to believe you. I'm not going to believe your stalker, and we're going to make sure you're safe, and even put their pictures up so that they can't come into any of our branches. It's credit union, which is amazing. And then the survivors I met afterward, like Hush No More is a great resource if you're being stalked. Go check out Hush No More. They're on the web with all sorts of great resources, advocacy. If you can't afford a lawyer, they can help connect you to one who can work with you, right? This is community. These are the people that are kind of filling those gaps, that are lifting you up so that you can be resilient when you don't have the energy yourself. It's just so amazing. What I also want to leave on, though, you know how I do, Eric, when I Marco you and or I leave you a message, I like to start off with the bad news.
No, you always start out with how bad your hair looks.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And it never looks bad every single time.
But you also say stuff like that, though, too.
Also, you just got redder than I've ever seen you before.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it makes my teeth look whiter. So. Anyways, I I like to end on a positive though, like right on everything and leave people. But this is something that I want to end differently. And um, I've talked about being an upstander, which is really great for community. You have to be an upstander. And I talked about being a bystander, being complicit. And I think that's so dangerous because you're choosing your comfort over someone else's safety. Me being conned into taking the stage when my husband, who left me for the neighbor, and who we would learn is my stalker, is you being complicit for your own comfort and not for my safety, emotional or otherwise. My stalker, when all this was going on in the middle, I didn't get to this part, was hired to be an accompanist for me when I wasn't supposed to be around anyone in that house by advice of my lawyer, which the entire production company knew. Complicit for your own sense of whatever, over my safety, putting me literally in the room. And it did not end well, by the way. Long story short, it didn't end well. And then I'm going to bring this up. This year, so the dude went to prison. I'm in the media. Everybody in this community should be aware. Long story short, I find myself in the front of the room and they pull up my ex-husband, who was also part of this theater company, for an award, and they had us arm wrestle for it. And it's just, I really wish I would have done something more dramatic. But you know what? I would have been the problem in that environment. And I just had the audience, the pressure of the audience staring at me. There was a big audience sitting there with these people. Most of the audience is mortified. Some of them have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, really? I'm going to arm wrestle my ex? And I'm arm wrestling him and he wins and like whatever. And it was just so. And
just to be clear, y'all, this just happened a couple weeks. Well, by the time this podcast comes out, what month? It came out like was last month?
February.
It's February, right?
Yeah.
February.
3 years. I mean, Joel, my stalker, is out of prison. Everybody should know about this, right? We all were around for this. Everybody should know this. Everybody should know that Danny was going through trauma. I moved out, moved back. What do you think that was about? So why in the world? But it's so important. I did it. I held my head high. I should never have had to do that. People don't take cybercrime seriously. Clearly, even when I'm going to rip out your intestines, even when it's sexual misconduct allegations that actually has to be investigated because it came from an Associated Press reporter, indistinguishable from all of the conversion therapy interviews I was getting. Indistinguishable, very well constructed. They don't understand. And they're choosing their comfort and complacency over my safety, emotional or otherwise. And that's just not okay. So it's kind of my call to action of we need to do better with our laws. We need to do better with our regulations of these tech giants. We need to be better and smarter as users of technology to make sure we're protected. We need to not compromise our safety by being nice to people who give us the gut feeling that it's not safe.
And we need to believe victims.
And we need to believe victims. And you need to be an upstander. You need to be an upstander.
I love how we started talking about community. I mean, it started with the seed of our friendship, got a little broader to the your theater community, talking about the sense of belonging, of being seen, safe, and celebrated as and because of who you are. And it all comes back to that. It all comes back to creating that safe space where we believe victims, where we see each other as they are, and we protect our brothers and sisters and beyond, and make sure that they feel safe and understand that if my fellow human is suffering, then we all suffer. Wow. I gotta say, I've done a lot of Instagram lives, and I'm a baby podcaster, but I've done a lot of interviews, right? And I have never been so silent during an interview before, because this was a mind-blowing story, Danny.
Thank you for letting me share it. And it's You know what's really great, Eric, and I know you get to experience this in your work too. Prepping for this talk and everything, I just, everyone should Google themselves at least once. And I Googled myself to see what was coming of it. And, when I first started speaking, it was about conversion therapy. And then I started speaking about this. And my job is not to talk about trauma. My job is to talk about resilience in times of change and disruption. But this work and trauma work, the storytelling, the healing that happens through sharing is realized when I see it come out in students' projects. I found this story featured in so many thesis or presentations even.
Your story is changing lives. Yeah.
Well, the story, it's just a matter of talking about it in a way that says, y'all, 16 out of 16,900. Red flag, because everybody has an iPhone that's capable of destroying someone's life. Let's talk about this,
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that. Thank you for letting me share and to get this out there. And it's nice to see the impact landing. And y'all, whoever's listening, watching, whatever, if you've got a story to tell, work on telling it.
Work on telling it and work on seeing and listening to and believing those in your lives. Danny, I don't even know how to end. I mean, my gosh, this has been a journey. So what?
I said, I don't know either. Can we end on something fun?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're going to have you back. We're going to, beautiful. We're going to have you back. We're going to talk about conversion therapy. That's not fun, but we'll talk about it. How can people find you oh gosh, we just talked about stalking. You might not want people to find you, but in a safe way, how can people find you if they want to reach out to you or if they want more information on what you do?
Yeah, listen, my stalker tries to sometimes open the door a little bit. We shut that shit right down. I have my victim witness coordinator. I have the DOJ. They are a phone call away. So if you think you're going to get away with messing with me, you've got another thing coming. Not to poke the bear, but just say that, listen, I'm well connected. So my name is out there. It's Danny Cords. I have an Instagram. People can follow me. They can also go to my website, www.dannycords.com. Check out some of my other work. I do public speaking. I am a consultant. I do work with Fortune 100s. And I have a great time doing it. And it doesn't come out in this interview, but I love psychology and I love talking about psychology in the workplace. And I love talking about change. So I don't know, we should talk about that sometime. Because that's where I'll light up and smile more.
You know what we should do for a podcast, save both of us some time, is we could just take some of our Marco Polos and just stitch them together for our listeners to hear. That'd be great.
We could do that.
It would be really funny.
Episode. Do you have Patreon?
I don't. I keep hearing about Patreon now. It's like one more thing I got to get on.
Gotta get Patreon. Yeah, get that money, honey.
Listen, Danny, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so glad that whoever that was tagged me in one of your videos all those years or months ago. Well, I guess a year and a half ago at this point in time. And I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was fun. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. And like I said, believe victims, maybe get a VPN. I don't even know what to say. And I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at that. Believe people. That's all I got.
Believe people. Hush No More is a great resource. Go check out Hush No More.
Amazing. All right, my friend. I'll see you soon. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.